This is Ryan Elliott for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. I'd like to be joined by trainer Dominic Ingle down here today ahead of Fight Camp Week 2. Dominic, first and foremost, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you for asking. Let's come on to why we're here. Kid Galahad challenges for the IBF Featherweight World title tomorrow night. Let's start with the weigh-in that we just had a bit earlier today. He was read out as 126, bang on. He was then told to hop back on. It all got a bit strange, a bit confusing. Can you just explain what happened from your perspective up there on the stage?
You never get those scales. They never settle on the true weight. They never settle on the weight. They're always going to be flicking between 126 and 126.10. And the inspector said that's fine. Obviously, we all realise he's got his pants on, and you know we could have left it at 126. If Jazz had got on and he was like that over with his pants on, I said, yeah, no problem, call it 126. But I think they think there's some kind of psychological warfare going on, and to make him take his pants off on the stage is going to have some kind of influence on the fight, and it's not. So it wasn't an issue, and he took his pants off and he got weighed in and he was under. Jazz came in, I think, 3/4 pound under. So, you know, it's storm in a teacup, really.
Dom, it's been so long since the first fight, I think around 8 years now. I know they've done some rounds together since. Is that all irrelevant, though, tomorrow night? Does all of that count for nothing?
That's as irrelevant as Galahad being out for a year and a half fighting. That's the way you've got to look at it. I know Jazz is making a song and dance of, you know, Galahad being inactive and he's being active. You know, this level where you're at, you've got to be concentrating more on what you've done right yourself, not what the other opponent's done or hasn't done. So it's never a good idea to be concentrating on that. Just focus on, you're going to bring the best version of you, and everything will be all right. And, you know, look back in history, Hagler against Sugar Ray Leonard. Leonard was out for 3 years and came back, boxed the best in the world, who was quite, you know, was very active. I personally don't think he won the fight, but he gave a very good account of himself after 3 years out. Yeah, Galahad and Dickens aren't on that level, but they're of a level of each other. So, you know, it's nothing for Galahad to be out for a year and a half. He's lived the life, he's been on it, and, you know, he's not going to be denied this time the world title.
In all that time since the first fight passed, everyone's been talking about the momentum, as you said, that Galahad-Dickens has and the improvements he's made, but how much have you seen Kid Galahad grow as a fighter and as a person in that time as well that's elapsed?
Oh, he's come on leaps and bounds. Don't forget that was at Super Bantam way back when, and they were both big prospects at the time, and, you know, realistically on paper, I think Jazza was actually the favourite. He had a good run on the GB team as an amateur, was a very good amateur, came through all the championships. You know, beat Lee Wood in the amateurs, beat Lee Wood in the professionals. So, you know, they've gone different routes. But I just think that Galahad's just boxed at a higher level. You know, he won the British Commonwealth European title at Super Bantamweight, moved up to featherweight. You know, boxed Josh Warrington, which I thought he'd won. He's just boxed at a higher level, better quality kids. You know, he's been over to America, boxed a very good kid, Tucker Clary Khan, boxed Marrero the last time out. You know, high level fighters. You know, all right, Jazza owns as a win over Lee Wood, which is great. It makes, you know, Lee Wood's, you know, win the other week good, and it makes Jazza look even better when beating Lee Wood. But, you know, styles and fighters, they're all a different, you know, kettle of fish, and I think Galahad's always going to be the one fighter who's always going to have Jazza Dickens' number. You know, it might have a psychological effect on Jazza. You know, it was his first defeat and he got knocked out, but we're not using that as anything to, you know, to use to build confidence in Galahad. Galahad will take confidence from the camps he's had, the sparring he's had, the levels that he's had, you know, the people he's been around, and just, you know, the discipline he's had through lockdown, and, you know, he's going to put that all into the performance on the night.
Dom, I was just hoping you'd give us a bit of insight into where Kid Galahad's been mentally this week. Even on the fighter Zoom calls earlier in the week that I was on, he seemed absolutely laser focused. We've seen him walk around with his no mercy cap. He's been very businesslike. Is this a man that just won't be denied tomorrow night? Yeah,
but that's the way he is. You know, after the Warrington fight, I just think he thought, you know, he thought he won the fight, and obviously, you know, he got it Warrington. And I think from that point on, when he boxed Marrero for the eliminator, he says, look, I can't take any chances with these guys, and I've got to start knocking them out. Can't leave it to the judges. And he boxed a very good fighter in Marrero, and he completely destroyed him and made the kid quit on his stool, and he could punch that guy. So that's where he's at now. He's in the zone. He knows what he's got to do. He can't leave it to anybody's decision. He's got to go out and stop these kids. And, you know, he said to me, I've got to go out and do a job on this kid, and got to systematically beat him up and stop him. And that's what will be in his mind. You know, he'll keep going that way. He'll either get it on points or he'll stop the kid. There's no way he's thinking about losing or that Jazz has even got a chance. In Galahad's mind, he's got no chance. And, you know, that's the way it is.
The journey that yourself and the whole Ingle gym's been on with Kid Galahad, and after the disappointment of that night against Josh Warrington, to see him with that IBF belt around his waist on Saturday night, what would it mean to you personally, Dom?
Oh, it's great because I've known him since he was 13 years old, and when you see the time and effort and the dedication he's applied to his sport, it's nice to finish with, you know, the World Championship belt. Like I said last week, Lee Wood did the same thing, 33 years old. You know, has been in and out of fights, wins and losses, and stuck at it, and it's finally paid off for him. And that's what boxing's like. You know, you've got to buy a ticket in the lottery to win it, and it's like boxing. You've got to stick in it long enough. You've got to completely, you know, exhaust all possibilities and give it the best shot you can. And you know, and that's what you've got to do. And that's what where Lee Wood, you know, did it last week. Galahad's going to do it this week. You know, Jazz is going to try and do it. But I just think that you know, Jazz is a very good fighter. But Galahad's just too focused, too strong, too committed and too disciplined, and that counts in the end.
You mentioned Lee Wood there. I wanted to ask you about him, Dom, someone you know well. Claimed that WBA title last weekend against Zhu Khan. I'm sure you watched the fight. What do you make of Lee Wood's performance?
Oh, fantastic performance. He just completely bamboozled Khan Zhu. You know, he didn't know what to do with Lee Wood. He hit him with a good variety of shots. He had his hands up high. Lee Wood fenced him, hit him to the body, hit him round the sides, wrong-footed him, switched stands. You know, the guy must have thought, what have I got here? You know, and then the icing on the cake, he knocked him out. You know, didn't even leave it to the scorecard. So, fantastic performance, and it makes an interesting mix now for what happens down the line. You know, he's with MTK, I think, and obviously with Eddie. You've got Jazzy, you've got Galahad. You've got other people in the mix. You've got Conlon, obviously he's with Top Rank. You've got Jordan Gill. So it's going to be an interesting division now, the featherweight division, and I'm sure Eddie can make some exciting matches.
That's what I was going to ask. If Kid Galahad is crowned world champion tomorrow night, is that a natural fight down the line, Galahad Wood, for 2 belts?
Possibly, but you know, I think Lee Wood will want to exhaust his possibilities. You know, get the big money fights. That's what it's all about. You've got to get to this point when you're, you know, after 30, you've got to look the best financial way to go. You've got to capitalise and maximise your earnings. So whatever the biggest fight is for him, you know, that's what he's got to take. It might not be Galahad, it might be somebody else, it might be Warrington. You know, Warrington comes through against Laura. You know, to get another title, why not put Warrington in with Lee Wood? You've got Nottingham, you've got Leeds, you've both got a big fan base. You know, that'd be a cracking fight and build it up that way. There's lots of options I don't know, but it might not be Galahad, but we'll see. You know, I mean, I don't think Warrington will go straight back into a fight with Galahad. So there's a bit of, you know, permutations with that situation. Who fights who? It'll be interesting.
Dom, someone I want to ask you about. Amir Khan's been in the media recently. He said he wants to come over and fight in the UK, he wants to finish his career in the UK. Naturally, that's brought up 2 names, Kell Brook and also Conor Benn as well. If we are to finally see Khan-Brook, do you assume that's the last fight for both?
I would have thought so, but you never know, because depending who wins that fight and in what fashion they win that fight, and you know how much they've got left in the tank. And I think really the fight has to be Brook and Khan. And I think I mentioned in another interview earlier in the week that what a great breakout fight, you know, crossroads fight for Conor Benn, because obviously Khan and Brook aren't the fighters they were 3 or 4 years ago, and you know they'll beat the living daylights out of each other in the next fight. And you know, a natural fight to make after that is Conor Benn, because he is the kid coming through, and I think he needs to beat somebody like a Khan or a Brook. Look what Khan did when they dragged out Barrera, you know, well past his sell-by date. But you look on his record, Nazim, you know, Barrera beat Nazim Ahmed, but he lost to Amir Khan. Amir Khan must have been a fantastic fighter. So it makes sense. So let them fight each other, make the money, and then, you know, whatever's left, if Conor Benn's up for it, stick him in, because, you know, he's got to step up at some point and take a risk. And it seems like a natural progression to me.
Just wanted to get an update on Liam Williams, Dom. I seen he said he's back in training. There's 3 particular fights he wants. He's looking at the likes of Golovkin and Eubank. I don't know, off the top of my head, I can't remember who the other one was right now, but he's looking to get straight back in the world title mix. Is that what you want? Do you want him to go straight back into a big fight? You
know, he's been up there. For me, I think he boxed the best middleweight out there, Andrade, very skillful fighter. You know, he pushed Andrade all the way. To me, it looked a different fight on TV to live. I thought Liam Williams did a lot better than it looked on TV, and you know, he got dropped early on in the fight, showed his conditioning, got through, caused Andrade a couple of problems. When he did tag him, he hurt him. He just couldn't tag him, you know, enough times to make it count. But you know, them type of fighters, the Andrades, are always going to cause Liam Williams, you know, problems, especially in the big ring. So you know, now he's at the stage where he can, you know, he's fought at world level. and there's fights out there for him, and he's another one who's got to capitalise on it, get 3 or 4 big fights, go in with anybody and anybody, and have a tear up, because he's proved he can do that. So, he's back in the gym. He's been back in the gym 2 weeks, had a little shoulder operation, and he's just getting back to fitness. So I'm expecting him to fight late autumn, maybe October, November.
One final fight I want to get your thoughts on before I let you go, Dom. We're just a couple of weeks away from the return of the evergreen Manny Pacquiao against Errol Spence for the Unified Welterweight Championship. What does it say about Manny Pacquiao that even at that age and everything he's done, he's still pushing for arguably the top guy in the division?
Yeah, I mean, you got to take your hat off to him. What a fantastic fighter he's been for, the journey he's been on, the titles he's won, the legacy he's left behind. Even when he got knocked flat on his face by Marquez, he came back and went on, and then, shocked everybody by beating Thurman. And, the look of disbelief on Thurman's face when he got dropped by Pacquiao, it's like, I don't think he's boxed since, has he? So, this is a different fight. Spencer's on the climb. He's a force to be reckoned with. But if anybody's going to be Errol Spence, it's going to be the craftiness and the cunningness and all the experience that Manny Pacquiao brings to it. It's going to be Manny Pacquiao. He's 42. It's a big ask because Errol Spencer's young. He's probably 10 years younger, and the rest, and that counts for a lot when you're a high level fighter yourself. So southpaw as well. Spencer's a southpaw. I'll probably negate a lot of what Spencer's got. But I don't know who's gonna. It was 2 years ago, I think, since he boxed Thurman. Has he still got the snap? Has he still got the fire? Has he still got the timing and the reflex? Because he'll need it against Spence. Spence is a big welterweight. But it'd be great to see him do it. It's an odd one to call. You're looking at all the things what Manny Pacquiao's done in the past, and you think, well, on paper he should win, but you've got to calculate into the age, and you start to lose a little bit when you get older. No matter how much you keep on it, you're going to get age-related decline. Your reflexes, all that kind of stuff, your resistance. So it could be either a fantastic night for Manny Pacquiao, where he boxes out his skin and just completely bamboozles Spence and beats him, or it could just end up flat on his face again, banged out. But it's hard to say.
Freddie Roach once told us, long before this fight was even discussed, that out of Crawford and Spence, he would prefer the Spence fight. He really liked the Spence fight for Manny Pacquiao rather than the Crawford fight. Do you understand why Freddie Roach would say that?
If I had the choice, it would probably be Crawford, because Crawford's older. And, when it comes down to it, Errol Spence has got a lot of ambition. He came over to England, beat Khan-Brook. It was probably one of his hardest fights. So, if I had that choice, I would have picked Crawford. Crawford is a good fighter, but he's old. He's getting older, and that's always going to be better for an older fighter. I think there's a big age gap between Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence. So, what Errol Spence lacks in experience compared to Manny Pacquiao, he's got in youth and drive. You know what I mean? And wanting to make a name for himself. He's still trying to make that legacy. He's still trying to make that name for himself, and that will drive him. Whereas Crawford's been there. He's past 30, he's about 32, 33. Sometimes they just start to settle down a little bit, whereas, Spencer, he's been in a horrific car crash. Some people never come back from that, and he has come back from it and still boxed well. So, I don't know why, obviously, maybe Freddie Roach has seen them both up close. Maybe he's had, people sparring Crawford, people sparring Spence, and for him, he's worked it out. That's sometimes you get that kind of inside information. Maybe he's had guys sparring those guys, so he sees something that nobody else will see. He'll have got some inside information, maybe.
Dom, I'll leave it there. Thank you for making the time to speak to Boxing Social the night before the fight. Best of luck, and I'm sure we'll catch you very soon.
Thank you.